miles away, so I haven't actually made contact yet.
That's been happening with my Jeep, too.
Right?
That's good for them.
It's totally good for them, yeah, right?
Yeah, both of our cars are aerodynamically sound
Yes.
for plowing through a cloud of butterflies.
Exactly.
Without hurting any of them. So.
92 Explorers, butterfly approved.
Until you roll over on them.
Well, they're not. They don't.
You don't have Firestone
settle.
tires.
Oh, that's the joke you were making. Yeah, mine are Bridgestone,
Yeah.
which is the same company, just rebranded.
Yeah.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah,
I didn't
Yes.
know that.
yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to get new tires this week, so.
Hey. And it was the 96 and later models that were
Shit years.
doing the rolling. It wasn't my years.
Same ones.
Yeah.
So. I can't afford the nice ones that I wanted, so.
You want what? Go
I'm
Costco.
getting tires for my Jeep this week
Yeah,
before I go
go
on my big
Costco.
road trip.
Yeah, Costco.
So Costco does not have
Your tires?
anything that I would be willing to put on my
Really?
Jeep. Yeah. No, it's all like touring tires for sedans.
Oh, they must have changed because they had some off-road for my car, and even though I've got a weird.
Also, I think my size probably doesn't help either.
Maybe.
So.
That's what. Never mind.
Yeah, right.
Let's talk after the show.
Giggity.
Okay. Sure. Sure.
All right, live to the world.
Hi, world.
Hi, buddy.
Hello. Hello, world. Oh, time to tweet about it.
Hello,
Oh,
darkness,
I
my
just
old friend.
realized. Where is Mike Pack 3?
Where's your what?
Rod, did we give you a mic pack yet?
Rod.
It's right there.
Could I have the pack itself?
Hello,
I don't need the
Rod.
microphone, just the pack.
Okay.
Awesome.
Whoa, this is weird.
What'd you do?
No, turn the volume down. We'll algorithm ourselves.
Interference problem I need to fix.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we?
Speaking of algorithms, did you see the thing where the Russian scientists said that they sent an electron back in time? Using an algorithm within their quantum computer?
Look, just because the time changed doesn't mean that it actually went back in time, okay?
No, they said that they reverted its entropic state.
Sure they did.
Yeah, I couldn't.
And I've got some Italian scientists who went faster than light, you know? So. Oh, we forgot to sync our clocks. That was a stupid result. So.
Oh, man.
How do you really feel?
Let me tell you how I really feel. So. Trying to think of like the dumbest results I've ever heard. The
Cold
most
fusion?
recent one is that Oumuamua might be a solar sail.
Right.
That was so stupid. I
Yes.
can't believe any journal accepted that. Just such a completely flawed study on every front.
What are we arguing about?
Really, really bad scientific results just through silliness or bad data, and the journals pick them up and run with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because apparently like a Russian science group sent photons or
So no,
electrons back in time?
using a quantum computer, they reverted an electron to a previous entropic state.
This is like the back in time stuff?
Yeah, reversing the arrow of
When
time.
you said Russian, we pretty much had it. Right. We've had it.
I mean, I don't know. I'll work it. Oh, suddenly YouTube's here.
This weird thing.
All
I
right.
don't know. I wondered.
All right.
I thought it was.
So.
Yeah. No. Okay.
While I'm at it, because the system's alarming, I'll fix me.
Look at my.
Yes, Peter, put us on your big screen.
Big screen.
Well, Wicked, I could tell you one thing about arriving on time after DST. It means I get to sleep an extra hour before the show. And just got to say, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's really nice. Right?
I don't know. I don't sleep much.
Oh, okay.
You're
Well,
one of those people. That's how you get things done.
People, we're the hunter-gatherer cave protectors or some recent study said, yeah, we're the ones who sit up all night going, because we were waiting for the tigers to come.
But now you're
No
the
tigers
CEOs.
anymore.
that's how I
Guys
feel.
with guns prowling outside the house.
That's how.
Yep.
That's how I feel whenever I go camping in bears.
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 Oh, look what I
Bears.
Go Bears.
Bears are
Bears.
frightening to me. Whoa, that's some cool camping.
What?
That's some cool camping.
Actually, I would say it's more glamping.
On the moon?
Glamping and me, no, this
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
the moon.
This
This
is
is
one for you.
some other, we don't know where moon.
Yeah.
That's no moon.
Book.
Wait, what's in the sky above it?
I don't know. This was, you know, we were struggling with.
Oh, yeah.
Show you that.
The cover.
We were struggling with.
Astro-YYZ, it was a legitimate scientist who posited the solar sail idea, which makes it even more frustrating. So, and it got raked over the
Yeah.
coals as soon as it came out. So
I did.
The National Space Society is co-sponsoring your book. Well, you can't put SLS.
Right.
Because half the world hates it.
Yeah.
But NSS
Got good definition here.
You can't put SpaceX because ULA is going to be pissed off.
Yeah.
You can't put ULA because
No,
Birds
actually,
and so
I rolled
forth
it.
and so on.
So you make
coming
your
up with
own.
Hard
Well,
to
and
focus
you can't
targets
put
on that
something
one.
too near term.
I'll try it again just to
that
make sure,
looks
but
achievable.
target should
Put
look good.
something Too weird because that looks impossible.
Right.
I'm not crazy about the B-29 fronts or
Yeah.
the spacecraft, but I tell you, this thing went out, and I got hundreds of emails saying, "Great cover."
That is an
Yeah,
awesome
it is.
cover.
You're waiting for
I love it.
and I liked reading it too. But,
Oh.
you know, there's about 10 of those.
Right.
It's like, great cover. Did you read it? I don't know.
Oh.
But I like the cover.
Yeah. That's all that matters. You,
So, can you still get in the dirt room?
the dirt room?
Yeah, it's the pillar under the planetarium directly below.
Oh, no. I don't
No.
think so.
No, I think that's, so the office space is under
Yeah.
the planetarium
Yeah.
now, and I think that is the elevator for the Zeiss projector.
I need
Yeah.
a Zeiss projector
It goes
elevator.
down in there?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, see, it used to literally be a concrete pillar with
Make sure
dirt
that,
from
open
1938
up the
around it.
software.
The seismograph sensor was there, so that's where you'd go and kick it if you wanted to excite the crowd, which was cool because they go beep beep beep, ding ding ding, like because you're directly,
Right?
And one time we had a party up there, and I had a few drinks. Last thing I remember is upending a bottle.
Luckily, we're past the statute of limitations
Yeah,
at this
right.
point.
I had upended a bottle of Nectar Rosé or peppermint schnapps or some god awful
Keeping it
thing. Just
classy.
mixing. Oh yeah. And I woke up much later, and I opened my eyes, and I thought. First, I realized I was lying in dirt, face down, and then I opened my eyes, and I thought, "Oh my God, I drank so much, I went blind!" And I started freaking out.
It's all black.
And I started feeling around. I realized I'd somehow let myself into that pillar, the dirt room, and I was sleeping face down in the dirt with lots of dead insects and stuff. And I went, "Oh, it's the observatory. I'm still here." Yeah. We had some very good times there and some very strange times. But I think they're much more
Buttoned up now?
buttoned down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is probably good. We're not on yet, right? What?
Yeah, we've been live.
We are. Hi.
Hi, everybody.
It's a wonderful place. I'm so glad they're doing it the way they do it now. No, it's it was a little out of control. Here's the thing, though. No, it was city run. We got no money for maintenance or improvements
Oh,
for the
no,
place,
still.
and it was. No, it was much worse.
I'm
and we had
sure.
laserium there.
Oh, I've heard
Just
nightmare
destroying our
stories.
lives.
Yes.
With all these people weaving in the lines, and one year it would be PCP, and the next year it would be pot, and the next year it would be buzz, and this guy's walking
Buzz.
by, and you're hearing
Didn't
this.
he write your forward?
No, I mean, it would be buzzed people. And these people would wear these trench coats. They're going, "Hey, what's up, dude?" Clink, clink, clank. They're full of bottles and stuff. And they'd go in there and just make our lives miserable with this horrible show.
People still ask about
Oh, yeah.
laserium, and it's just like, no, it's not.
No, it's not a thing. Hasn't
not a
been
thing.
for 30
Spirogram with
years.
stars. Why would anybody want to see that?
Right? And it's all the same type of person asking about
Yeah.
it, too.
It's always like somebody coming up and like, "Hey, you
Dude, I remember.
I remember it was awesome.
So they're all
bad.
like
Back
my
in-
age or older,
well,
right?
Back
Yeah.
when I was your age, before we had computers and everything, it was just like,
I
oh
had
my
my
God.
time at Sinclair. It was a dopey show, but it was very popular
Yep.
for
I
people
saw-
on controlled substances.
On YouTube, there is a like a remastered version of it, and it's literally like stick figure people and things
Yes.
like that. And I'm just like, I don't understand why this is
and
amazing.
4 colors.
So, yep.
And that's it. And the most exciting thing about it was not that we ever would, but you could take the planetarium projector and crank it all the way up and go back in time about 1,000 years, very Emerson, Lake, and Palmer, which is great until, of course, some of the guides would like turn it off like that. And you know what happens with this ice when you turn it off quickly? It goes, you hear this really bad noise, and then it's like, hey, it's not moving anymore. So the shops had to do a lot of work on it.
Yeah, guides are not allowed to touch the Zeiss projector controls anymore.
Well, you just got it. Ours was 50 years old then. Yours is brand new. Is that right? Right, 58, 68. It's only 40 years old then. That was a really long time ago.
Yeah.
I guess I'm over 30 now.
So tough to remember that though, because no one ever feels it.
Oh, aging?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you do. Just wait a while. You feel it in the
Sarah,
morning, you go, well,
About that.
Ow.
I feel it. So
how old are you?
Sorry.
30. So
Right?
I can't run as fast as I used to, and I don't recover from.
Well, see, but that's the key. I can't run as fast as I used to versus I can't run at all without falling on my face, you know? It's just, you're doing pretty
Fair
well.
enough.
I could
Fair
never
enough.
run.
And without
so...
laserium, you don't have to run anymore because you don't have big guys named Cletus coming after going, hey, come here! We couldn't even wear real ties. We had to wear clip-on ties because if you wore a real tie, they could grab you and go boom, with their head.
Sheesh.
You should see the look of surprise in their face when they came after you and grabbed their tie and it went bink. And then you could. I'm sorry, I'm way off track
This
here.
was LA in the 80s.
No, this is the kind of stuff we want.
This is it, right?
Yep. And
Yeah, careful back row.
another
Ah!
fair warning, I've been talking with Tony Cook.
Okay. Well, that could
guess-
equal a couple of things.
Just for folks who are watching, I'm sure we'll mention this during
Yeah.
the show too. Myself and Sarah both work at Griffith Observatory right
Represent.
now.
Yep.
And Rod is sort of one of the OG
Right?
people who worked at Griffith Observatory. When did you work at the observatory? From
Well,
Original
I
Griffith.
wasn't there in 1938. I was there from 1975 to 1983, 4-ish.
okay, so you almost a decade.
Right in the archaeoastronomy library.
start?
then, yeah.
Very nice.
And when I
All right,
started
let me just get my thing set on my belt correctly here. I'm sorry. I don't want to roll over onto it. You know, it's like a small
Like a
dog.
baby
I don't want to
panda?
crush it.
This
You have
part where
yours?
he dresses, baby panda.
What's-
Baby panda crushing your...
yep.
I spent 9 months on that.
Jared, do you have
What
ears
would the
in?
end of your day be like if you ate
Well,
bamboo shoots
excuse
all
me?
day?
Do you have ears?
Yes.
You ready to
Are
start?
you ready to start?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I
Okay,
was just
let's-
putting
Of course
it on
he's
my
ready to
belt.
start.
So I didn't want it to drop. Good Lord.
Mic drop. Sexual chocolate.
Get with the program, pal.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tomorrow. So glad to have you watching here today. My name is Jared, and I've also got Sarah here as well. And we're going to be your hosts for this episode, and we have a very fun episode coming up because our guest today, Mr. Rod Pyle. Oh my gosh! Welcome back, Rod. You know,
What's
we
oh
had
my
you-
gosh for? What did I do?
You're just here.
Oh, I thought it was
Yes.
because my glasses were filthy or something. Hi. I am here, and this is great.
Yeah, and we had you on as a guest last year as well,
did.
and we had tons of people clamoring to have you come back and kind of
many?
talk. I mean,
Fives of people.
I was going to say at least 17 loyal fans. Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, so
Well, good. And I've been counting the years until I could come back. So
Excellent.
I'm very excited.
So,
happy
yeah.
to be
excellent. So we're so glad to have you
Thank you.
here with us today.
We have to restart. That was a technical fault.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay.
Oh!
Thanks, Ben.
I bet we weren't recording.
Oh, but all of the wonderful
All right, I'll
chemistry.
also try to make
Doesn't this
that
go out
intro
well?
not suck.
Also, it's
Yes, live. Yes, people are watching, and then we do an edit. That
Wow.
gets
12:09.
I get to see
Thank
us
you.
make mistakes.
Yeah,
Yep.
I just I realized I totally brain farted on that, and then
this episode.
I was just like, "Welcome to this episode." I'm Jared. Yeah. So. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tomorrow, episode 12.09. Very glad to have you here. My name is Jared, and I've also got Sarah here as well. And we're going to be co-hosting this show because we have an awesome guest today, live by request, because you all asked him to come back. We have Mr. Rod Pyle on our show today. Last year you came on the show, and it was an absolute riot to have you on here. We talked about space stories and talked about some things that maybe we'll talk about a little bit later again, and we're just gonna have such a
anything you like that's past the statute of limitations. You said earlier, you bet.
We were just talking about that. So, Rod, just to kind of get this started, tell us a little bit about yourself for the folks who may not have caught the episode last year.
So I was born before the beginning of time, back at the early start of the space age, and didn't realize until just a few years ago how fortunate I was to have grown up in the 1960s. Well, in 70s, kind of. Not that old. But, I mean, I was able to watch the last part of the Gemini program live as it was happening. I was able to watch all of Apollo live as it was happening. So as my friends were trading football cards of baseball cards and the kind of things we did then, I was there staying home from school playing hooky, watching guys walking on the moon, which was great until Apollo 14, when the networks realized nobody was going to die out there in that particular flight. And right in the middle of the guys going up Cytocone Crater, they cut back to Days of Our Lives and I Love Lucy reruns. I kid you not. There's guys on the moon. We got used to it a little fast. So that was my first lesson in space journalism, was I thought, I kind of thought I wanted to be an astronaut. Fat chance of that, right? And then I thought, I'm going to want to be a planetary scientist. And I thought, no, I want to be a space journalist because somebody's got to tell people how cool this is because they don't get it. And a lot of people still don't get it, which is why you guys are so important. And you, I hope.
I was going to say, you're still working as well as a space journalist. So.
Oh, endlessly. Yeah, I did 4 books last year. Actually, 5 if you count the one I do for JPL. So yeah, it was a very highly informative year for the public. So anyway, that's what I do now. I had a bunch of careers in TV commercials and so forth. And did visual effects on Star Trek for a while, which was great fun because it was the very end of the period we got to work with the miniatures. Nice. So instead of doing CGI, you got to go out of position and look at it.
Like actually physically moved things.
Yeah, and you could pretend. You could go look, it's a real spaceship. And
practical is...
had those moments. See?
It's underrated.
Well, and Interstellar and a number of other movies, The Passenger, those are all practical effects. So, yeah. So that was very cool. And now I do space books and I edit a magazine for the National Space Society called Ad Astra.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which, if you're not getting copies, you should be because it's really cool now.
Do you have to be a member?
If you do say so yourself.
Do you have to be a member of the National Space Society to get it?
Why, no. All you have to do is sit
here?
here and talk to me, and I will give you a copy.
Yeah. Wow, look at this. And it's like heavy paper, too.
Man.
So it feels really
you can actually file your navels on the cover.
Yes.
It's that kind of heavy.
You're not wrong. It's pretty good.
So it's a quarterly, and they've been doing it for, 38 years now or something under various names, but it has just been a blast.
I just flipped open to this guy.
Hey,
look! Suddenly.
Oh yeah. What? Well, I had to say, hey, I'm your new editor now.
There you go.
A message from the new guy.
But it is so. Well, what else would you call it, right? Yeah. No, I mean, what are you going to say?
New guy. Yeah, quite nice.
But it's it's the mouthpiece of the organization. Internally, we're doing an Apollo special edition for mid-year.
Oh, awesome.
It's going to be about 90 pages, and that one's going to be available to the public. So we're hoping that we can kind of open the door and get more members in.
Yeah.
And if you guys aren't members, you should be, because if you were, you would also get. Is he going to come and stop me? The roadmap to space.
This is what you're here
Nice.
for.
Which is the next 40 years or so in how we're going to go out and
This looks like the in-flight
settle the solar system
magazine on airplanes.
It kind of does.
Say.
Well, it was interesting because, if you're talking about space settlement, what comes to most people's minds is, the tin cans in space, right? Or lava tubes if you're a little more with it. But I thought, what's a soft way to say it? What does that really mean? If you buy into the idea of space settlement, which we do, it means normal people living up there in shirts doing what we're doing right now in an environment like this. And I thought, let's use this. Jim Vaughn is this illustrator we use for the covers of the magazine. I said, let's use this picture of this little girl.
Yeah, that's
I just love that because it's like, Hey, look at that! She's got a little teddy bear hanging down
Yeah,
there.
she does. She's just checking out the view.
Yeah.
So like anybody would at that time. So yeah, very, very cool.
So I burned up that time pretty well, didn't I?
Well, I was going to say, if you could actually tell us a little bit about the National Space Society,
Okay.
what you do, and if people do want to become members of it, how do they do that?
Just send checks. It's been around
Make
since
much Rod Pie.
the late 70s. So it was a merger of the National Space Institute, which von Braun started while he was still at NASA, to sort of get the word out to the public in a way more direct than NASA public relations could, because they were kind of constrained at the time.
Yeah.
And of the L5 Society, which was Gerard O'Neill's group. So they merged in, I think, '84, and they've been doing what they do ever since, which is really just trying to spread the word of space settlement and the idea that not just that, but that a robust space program is really good for the country and really good for the world.
Yeah.
And that there's a lot of benefits to come. It's not just about adventure and exploration, which are good things if you get into the philosophical side of the discussion, but they only go so far.
Yeah.
We are, as I mentioned in my new book, Space 2.0, entering a new space age. And this one's going to be driven by economics. It's not going to be geopolitics this time. It's going to be about people making money and finding ways to go out there and benefit we hope, everybody on Earth.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about, we have an annual conference where we talk a lot about things like space solar power. You've got these big power stations up in orbit, soon we hope, beaming power down to the planet's surface, and we don't have to burn oil and kill ourselves anymore. So it's a pretty good deal. So people can join by going to space.nss.org. Yeah, I remember that right. First year's $20. It's a great deal. And you get the magazine.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are asking in our chat room about how the plans are to normalize sending people to space. Sending people like us who aren't professional astronauts to space. Like, what does that look like?
It still looks like a big challenge. I mean, if you've been tracking, which I'm sure you have, Virgin Galactic, you can see how hard it is. He was predicting 2008, we'll be flying in hours. And, with the best of intentions, it's turned out to be really hard. There's still, that hardest part is from right here to 62 miles up there. After that, it's gravy. As long as you got life support and some kind of propulsion system, you're good to go. But that initial vertical hop is really, really tough. I think it's going to look increasingly like what SpaceX and Blue Origin are doing. I think rocket planes do still have a future, but that straight old vertical lift using chemicals as they have been, it's just a question of making it repeatable and recyclable and affordable, which is why I think for me, and a lot of people would disagree with this, I think, but for me, watching the launch of the Falcon Heavy was kind of finally that hammer drop that said, bang, the new space age is here. It's happening again. You're watching it, and it's this billionaire who just said, I like rockets. I'm going to build some, and I'm going to make them reusable and affordable and start sending a lot of people out there. And he and Bezos have really turned this whole thing around. Now, ULA and Northrop Grumman and the other companies are following that lead, and they're reinventing themselves very quickly to be able to participate in this, which is great. But I think it really took these guys, these eccentric guys, if you can call them eccentric, coming along and
They're
saying,
rich, so they're eccentric,
yeah, I'd like to be that eccentric for even a percentage of it. And look at Bezos, here's a guy who's cashiering $1 billion of his own stock every year to finance this dream. Now he can do that for, I don't know what, another 150 years. So, it's pretty good net worth. But I mean, the commitment that takes is just breathtaking. So I think that's what's going to do it. And ultimately finding reasons to be out there. And that's been for so long part of the argument. NASA has been trying to sell the American public on the space program since 1961, when Kennedy first announced the Apollo flights. And there's only so much you can say when you're doing it in that way for those reasons. But when you're able to say, we're going to go out there and do commerce, and you're going to have a better life, benefits on Earth, benefits for people out there, now you've got a real conversation going.
Well, NASA with the Asteroid Redirect Mission, or ARM, they had an attempt at kind of getting into that commercial for-profit-ish aspect, but then that got defunded. Do you think that's going to be resurrected as we get farther along with this commercial?
I kind of doubt NASA will go back to that. There really was never a compelling reason to send people there except for the engineering exercise, I think. It gave SLS something to do.
Right.
It was a big technological challenge. But if you want to go grab samples from an asteroid, send a robot. They're smart. They're not meat bags like us. They do really well out there.
Yeah, they don't complain. They don't need air.
complain.
They don't need water.
Yes.
They don't need food.
Yes.
They
They
don't need
don't rupture
radiation
like we do.
Yes.
They don't get cancer. They just sit out there and get a little dumber as the radiation cooks their very old processor chips. But it makes a lot of sense for machines to do that. And I think overall, when you talk about robotics versus people, which is kind of the classic National Space Society, Planetary Society conversation, robots are better. No, people are better. We don't have that conversation anymore, but in the past, there's a place for both. Robots have to go first.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now, because robots are getting really smart and we have additive manufacturing, robots can not only go first and look around and explore, dig little trenches and stuff, they can also prepare the infrastructure so that people go when it makes sense.
Yeah.
So, hey, robots, go forth, Gort, and go in the lava tube and build my condo. And then I'll go hang out there in comfort, and you can go up on the surface and get irradiated. I think that's perfect.
Yeah, I was just thinking, with the ability to do telepresence, and especially with VR kind of becoming a very popular thing once again, stuff like that actually could allow you to operate in places that otherwise you wouldn't really be able to operate in. And you don't necessarily have to do it like, in the lava tube underground and at the surface. I know there's been some ideas to put people on Phobos and have them operate robots on the surface of Mars as well. So, so without having to dive into the gravity well of Mars in order to do that.
But don't you want to dive into the gravity well?
I do.
Yeah.
I know I do.
Yeah.
So, but it is interesting. I mean, you're talking about, this telepresence and short latency and so forth. I mean, I've been hearing that discussion since, well, not hearing it, but researching it since the late 50s, early 60s, when they were talking about, especially in the late 60s, they were talking about we talked about this last time I was here, doing flybys of Venus and Mars with Apollo-derived hardware, because it's something you could do.
Yeah.
Well, when asked, well, why would we want to do, you're traveling for the better part of a year or more for a 12-hour, 8-hour flyby of this planet. On the dark side, they said, because we can control the robots right there with sticks and push buttons, because robots were stupid and fallible then.
Yeah.
Now they're really smart and they're really robust. So is it that important to cross that last bit? I don't know. At Mars it makes sense because you're talking about 20 minutes. They're talking about doing robotic, essentially telepresence around the moon with the LOPG or Gateway or whatever it is this week. I think it's Gateway now. And it kind of makes sense. But I just want to do something there. You know, if that's the best reason to do it in their book, that's okay with me. But it also begs the question of at a certain point, what is being there? I mean, do we need to take our meat bags there to be there? Or do we have really sophisticated telepresence? And at a certain point, probably not in the distant future, I bet you play computer games, right? At a certain point in the future, how are you going to know the difference between here and there and being in the game and being outside? And there's the latency issue of the signal and so forth. But at a certain point, I almost kind of wonder if sensing that you're there is going to be enough for most people, and we just have machines doing it. I mean, the best way to go to space, I think, is to transfer my consciousness, I'm volunteering, into a little robotic cockroach about this big. He's radiation proof. He doesn't care about being in a vacuum. He doesn't care about temperatures and all those things. He's just a little happy robotic cockroach. And, maybe send some little girl robotic cockroaches. They'll look attractive enough after a while. Everything will work out. And we, our mass is very small, and we go off and explore Venus. And that's my space program.
Well, I'm with you on the transfer of consciousness. If somebody could do that, figure that out very quickly, I would have no problem exploring space that way too. That seems like a very interesting way to actually go about doing that. So.
And I wouldn't mind going into a young Arnold Schwarzenegger's body, but I think the cockroaches work better because they're low mass.
Just as long as the chassis looks good.
Yeah.
So.
And that's not in the roadmap to space, by the way. That's
there's no
my
cockroach
personal
section.
thing. NSS isn't necessarily big on the robot thing. That's kind of my, I'm a futurist or something.
Right? I personally.
That's what happens when you work at Griffith. You get these kind of ideas because they,
Oh no, yeah,
they make you
I've
brilliant.
definitely
Yeah.
thought of that as well. But for me, my question is getting that information back, because you haven't built those neural pathways. Those memories of your cockroach, they don't get back to you. So.
Well, in the case I'm describing, I am the cockroach.
You just become the cockroach. That is your future.
Yeah, they take my brain. They take the little part of my brain that still works at my age, and they say, "Here, we'll just stick it in there. The rest of it isn't important."
Then I want to go a lot bigger than a cockroach. I'm a fan of the thumbs. I want to be able to manipulate things. Cockroaches are like, let me push this dirt ball.
Yeah, but they got 6 legs.
They have 6 legs that they need
got all that
all
extra
for
stuff.
walking. They have these.
No, you can.
They're 6 by 6.
We're getting a little weird here, aren't we? But there's got to be a way, you can bend in the middle.
Something wrong with weird?
Think of having a thorax now. And you can bend up and you can use 4 of your arms up front, so you don't need opposable thumbs, right?
I could get a lot more
Get
done
all-
with 4 arms than I could with just how I am right now.
Think of
So-
being McDonald's. Burger, fries, shake, Diet Coke. Because
only one mouth,
I'm weird
right.
enough to mix a shake with a Diet Coke. Look, I'm saving sugar. And yeah, with 4 arms, you could just kind of. It doesn't do much for dieting, but exercise would be interesting. A lot of things would be interesting.
Yeah, I got.
Well, if you're a robot, exercise doesn't matter,
And isn't that a cool idea?
right?
I can
So, like, I'm
consume
with you
power and
on many of these
oil, yeah,
aspects.
without ever gaining an ounce. Oh, I like this better and better.
Right?
Yeah. But I think, we've got a lot of interim steps between here and the roach bots.
Just a
Right.
few.
Yeah.
Just a few.
And one of them is, the solar system turned out to be so much nastier than we thought. When I was a kid,
Oh yeah.
they hadn't done their first flyby yet.
Yeah.
And I was old enough to remember that moment when Mars died. Because we had
right.
Ray Bradbury, we had Edgar Rice Burroughs, we had Princess Deja Thoris on Mars, and the Thotes, and all this cool
and then
stuff.
Mariner 4 went
just
past
wrecked your
it
day,
and just
right?
Screwed everything up.
I
Maybe
had
some
this,
methane. Bye.
yeah, and I was doing this book panel at JPL, I don't know, 4 years ago or something. I thought, how am I going to open? I thought, I know, so I got up there and said, hi, I just want to let you people know that you ruined space for me, and here's how. You killed Mars. And they're like, what's wrong with this guy?
Yep.
But, I mean, we really had this great... So, we had the idea that at least the terrestrial worlds in the solar system were kind of like other Earths. And it was a little colder, a little drier on Mars, and Venus was probably warm and swampy and might have dinosaurs. I mean, the scientists weren't thinking this at
Right.
that point when I
Yes,
was a kid.
right.
But a lot of people still had this popular vision, and we didn't know for sure. Even the scientists thought, well, maybe there's lichen on Mars and various plants and
Yeah, that's
possibly
why,
liquid water.
That's why those dark
and-
areas move around on Mars. That's why they shift
Right.
in shape and things like that.
What
So-
was the deal with the wave of darkening? I still haven't read a good explanation of what that really was. Well, maybe it was a dust storm. I don't see it now. Anyway, we got out there and discovered the solar system was pretty hostile.
Yeah.
And space kind of hates people.
Yes.
And says, stay on Earth where you belong. Barstow is better than anywhere else in the solar system, so, stay in Barstow. Well, I mean, it may not be as entertaining, but environmentally, it's better.
Yeah.
You can stand there and breathe, and there's water
did.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always said, the Mojave is basically Mars, but about 200 degrees warmer. So
Yeah, and about 1,000 times kinder to your body.
Yeah, that too.
Your
Yeah.
eyeballs won't invert and go
Right.
dangling down.
Yeah.
Plus all that radiation blocking of Earth.
yes, there's also that too. So
Very handy.
Yeah.
And on Mars, the thing that still gets ignored, just talking about how difficult it is to do these things and why we still haven't gone there, even though in the 60s, Von Braun and guys like that kind of promised me by the 80s we'd be there, and I'm a little bent about that. But if you saw The Martian, which I'm sure you did, I mean, the first thing that kind of bugged me was, oh, I lost part of the structure of my habitat. I'll just staple up some plastic sheeting there. That'll be fine.
In the book, it's
there's
a lot
pressure
better.
differential. Okay. But then he goes in there, he's farming his potatoes, and I'm looking at him thinking, that soil is full of perchlorates.
Yes.
Your eyes would be fizzing, your lips would be, you'd be turning into a Gila monster or something. So I guess what I'm getting at is we got a lot of stuff to figure out, and the more we study it, the more we realize how hard it is.
Right.
So yeah, let's get going.
I think you've kind of hit on it. NASA has a PR problem of reality. NASA deals in the real
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it.
of the harshness of space, and we want the fantasy. We want Venus.
We
to
want
be.
Mars 1.
We,
Because how hard can it be, right?
Look at it, Lisa.
I'll sell some reality show tickets. Is
Right?
she a candidate?
She knows a candidate. Now she's looking away.
She's
and
not
blushing.
looking at us. Yeah.
Me and Lisa know the same candidate, so I think we're just going to sit here quietly.
Well, and there was a great article by a woman named Elmo Keep, who's I think in Australia.
Oh, God. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, who went through the process. Now, you never.
You interviewed the candidate we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to switch stories. So I was at the solar eclipse last year, or was it 17 or 18?
17.
Yeah.
17.
Yeah.
It's close enough to be
time
last year.
dilation due to age. But I was at that solar eclipse. We were sitting in Prineville, Oregon, which it was so sad because the whole main street was lined with tables with eclipse T-shirts and glasses, and they were going to make millions, and it was eclipse apocalypse and all this kind of stuff. They're looking up and down the street, and there's nobody there. Everybody had gone further north. So it was great for me. Got a hotel. There was the park down there. But there was a guy that showed up who was going up to, they were doing some rock concert kind of festival thing up in the woods, which I wanted to stay well away from. I just wanted to see the eclipse. I was just there to see the eclipse, not to, bathe in mud and those kinds of things. And this guy was a Mars One devotee. So it's me, my son, an NSS guy named Dave Dressler, and this fellow. And he is, because he knows I write books, he's got to convince me.
Oh.
This is a real thing. And he's going on. And my kid's just staring at me through the whole thing because he knows me. And he's just waiting for the outburst. I was pretty good. I mean, I said, well, I've got some issues with, oh, no, you don't understand. It was like this religious conversion experience going on. I said, let's just agree to disagree. You don't understand. And I said, I worked in television a long time. He's never going to get enough money off of reality TV sales to fund this. And that's not enough anyway. He was talking about $5 or $6 billion. It's like, it's really expensive to do this stuff. It's really hard to do this stuff. You didn't even get we're going to have a lander in 2014. I mean, 16. I mean, 18. I mean, 20. It's like, well, then how are you going to get people there in 20? So, yeah.
Do things like that end up sort of souring the appetite for the public of doing things like this?
That was my primary complaint.
Yeah.
I don't mind vision. I don't mind drive and dedication. I don't even mind a little fantasy because it did get a lot of people excited because they said, wait, I could be a part of this for $36?
Yeah.
But I think most of us knew it was going to hit a wall and crash and burn. And it has, arguably. And I think it makes it harder for the next person to come along.
Yeah.
So then you get something like Dennis Tito and Inspiration Mars, which could have worked as long as you were willing to sit in that capsule for 9 months or whatever the round trip would have been. That was a fly around Mars. I think it makes it harder for people then because they say, oh, that's like that other muscle.
Yeah, in fact, I remember when Dennis Tito came out talking about Inspiration Mars, there were so many comparisons to Mars One when it came out, even though it had been much better researched and funding sources were actually like trying to find those as opposed to just asking people to pay for an application.
You didn't have to invent a lander. You just flew around. Like you said, you don't have to go down to Mars's gravity well. You just sling by and come home.
Yeah. And those, that's, studies have been done by NASA, in the 60s. That
endlessly.
Did that, with the Apollo applications program, like you were talking with the crewed Venus flyby.
Right.
That there was an actual framework there that could have been developed around that.
The scary one was they had the Mars flyby or the Venus flyby or the Mars and Venus flyby, which I think was 18 months or 20 months or something, which, of course, by the time you came back, you'd be antenna because all that radiation. But that would have been a long time, even in Skylab, Skylab size thing.
I'm less familiar with this Mars, what is it, experience?
Oh, let's stop talking over that.
How would that have worked? Or planet dynamic wise, if you just go orbit once or twice and come
No,
back.
there's no orbit.
So,
this was strictly
just
a flyby. So that's why I said it's a year plus out there for an 8 or 12 hour. Hey Mars, how's it going? Oh, bye.
Yeah,
and then you're done.
But coming back from Mars, it's best to by the time you get out there, the planets have changed position relative to each other. So you would need to kill some time out there to make it easier to get back. Otherwise, you've got quite the journey on the way home.
There actually are free return trajectories that you can launch yourself on, where the trajectory you've launched on and a little bit of the gravity from flying by Mars ends up bending you back so you intercept the Earth. But it's like Rod's saying here, where like it's 9 months to get to Mars, but then it's like 15 to 18 months swinging around.
And maybe going
Yeah,
past Venus to get there,
Yeah,
right?
so why not throw in Venus? Is I guess what I'm saying. Like,
Well, it's just baking out there all that time, and we
course.
still haven't
Right.
solved the radiation
Of course.
problem.
No.
You know?
And yeah, we actually did a piece up at Griffith Observatory where it was raising they said they were raising $5 billion to go to Mars with the entire trip, and no.
Who said?
The Mars One.
Oh, I thought you meant
team.
Griffith was
no.
there. I said,
And,
wow, they've really come a long way since I was there. That's
Right.
cool.
City
Yeah.
of LA is funding a small expedition to Mars.
Yeah, but
Bye,
we
it's
did
been nice
piece.
knowing you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a piece where it was like, oh, by the way, the toilet on the International Space Station cost $19 billion. Sorry, $1 million.
I was going to say.
Oh, yeah.
$1 million.
Whoa,
Wait a second.
that's
away-
NASA's budget this
Yeah,
year.
guys.
Hold on.
Sorry,
So-
guys. Yeah, $19 million for R&D and implementation. Just
And it still
the
breaks.
toilet.
It still didn't work great.
Just the toilet.
But it was way better than what they did in the Apollo era, which was the top hat. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I met Al
Yeah.
Worden, the command module pilot
Yes.
of Apollo 15, and he once he said that after they saw the top hat, they used to joke that real men flew Apollo because they didn't wear an undergarment to catch everything.
Well, and they just didn't eat much. That's where low residue dining comes in. So you want it to go in and be absorbed and not see the light of day again. Actually, I was with Worden last week. I went from Pasadena to Tucson for a festival of books there, which was cool. 130,000 people showed up for a book festival.
Wow.
The town's only like 330,000 or something.
That's quite a few people.
American can
That's a
still
bunch.
read.
Yeah, and they care, right?
That's amazing.
That was great. So we had these packed sessions. I was up with Alan Stern, who's a really nice guy, and Jim Hansen, who wrote First Man. I'm spending a lot of time thinking, what am I doing on panels with these guys? You know, I'm a mid-list author. So that was 82 degrees. Then got on a plane and flew to Des Moines, Iowa for Celebrate Innovation Week, which is this really cool conference this guy named Tony Poshton puts on, does a great job. Hi, Tony. And got off the plane, it was 7. I'm not sure I've ever been in 7 degrees. I'm not even sure I've been in single-digit degrees. It was like walking into Superman's Crystal Palace of Solitude or whatever it was. It was really shocking. But anyway, that was for another event, and we had an Apollo astronaut panel. And again, you know, so I got Al Worden and Fred Hayes and Walt Cunningham and Jerry Griffin, the flight director there. I'm standing on the stage trying to appear relatively calm and normal, but inside I'm like, I'm going to wet my pants. These are Apollo astronauts. It was really incredible. And Worden was just, I mean, he is the best storyteller and really knows how to relate those tales about what they did to the public in a way that he gets the room. He's very engaging. I mean, they all were. But afterwards, we had to take him to the airport. And Tony said, what do you want for lunch? And he said, I've always wanted to try Chick-fil-A. So we went to Chick-fil-A, and the next thing you knew, the entire kitchen staff is out there. Will you sign our cow? You know the cow that says eat more chicken on the side?
Yeah.
The Chick-fil-A thing. It's like, don't eat cows, eat chicken. So there's little stuffed cows. So he was signing people's cows. He's very gracious. Anyway, that's not much of a story, but that was my first meeting with Al Worden.
Yeah, he's a fun. I got to spend a day with him a couple years ago at workplace, and
Oh, you must have been somewhat corrupted by the end of a whole day.
I was.
That's pretty incredible.
I've heard stories of what it really was like to be a fighter jock in the 60s and 70s. So it was very interesting, I have to say.
More fun than our lives.
Oh,
probably.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. So
Yeah.
what could be remembered, or what could be spoken of.
Right.
Yeah, just a little bit interesting.
Thank you, officer. I'll let her.
Well, statute of limitations. Anyways, sort of to move on a little bit from this, to sort of talk about, Apollo, big rockets, capsule, small spacecraft to have a very set, concrete mission going on. There was obviously a very big amount of news this week about another big rocket with a small capsule trying to do a very specific thing, which was the Space Launch System and the movement of EM-1 to, commercial launchers and things like that. And just,
It was a wake up and go,
Yes.
what?
Yeah,
kind of moment. Yeah.
I think there were a couple NASA centers that went, they're doing it, sort of like that. Do you feel like that's kind of sort of like going to shift things around? Like maybe there's a fire been lit under some people's butts?
Well, I think,
to do this?
we saw that with the National Space Council, with them being put back into action. And pretty early on, part of the mandate including the incoming Trump administration, was let's use our commercial assets to our best advantage. And that was one of the, if there's a core to the Space 2.0 book, which came out last week, it is, what is the sweet spot between NASA, other international government agencies, and the private sector all around the world, but especially in the U.S., because I talked to, I don't know, I interviewed, I think, 40 people for this book, so heads of international space agencies and NASA officials and Gwynne Shotwell at SpaceX and Rob Myers at Blue Origin and so forth. And really the big power in private space flight, entrepreneurial space flight, is in the U.S. because of our tax structure and the fact that we have a lot of billionaires here. And it makes sense to do that. But where is this magical spot that's going to make what we all want happen in space? And, you look at NASA's own internal studies that say, yeah, SpaceX can do things for somewhere between half and a tenth of what it costs us. Maybe that's not such a bad idea. And even JPL now is looking at outsourcing a mission to India, at least the fabrication and some of the operation of it, because they did their first Mars orbiter for $36 million with an M, and it costs us hundreds, sometimes as much as, I think InSight was $800 million. So it does make a lot of sense, and I think you've got to find that right balance. But getting specifically to your point, I think it makes a whole lot of sense to start flying stuff on the Falcon Heavy and ultimately New Glenn when it comes into operation, because SLS is just an expensive, older design. I don't know what it's going to cost per flight. I keep hearing $1.5 billion, but when I look at how far the manifest is going to go, how many flights that's probably going to be, and how much they've spent doing it, just kind of redesigning the Saturn V in twice the time it took to do the Saturn V. That's unfair, but you get the idea. Let's not forget that NASA's operating on a tenth the budget it had then and doing 50 times as much stuff, so it's difficult. But I just don't think they're going to fly it out very long, and it'll be very expensive.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, is what's really the problem at the moment with NASA? Like, besides PR, obviously, and talking and communicating their mission.
There's a problem?
Like, what's the current issue? Like, why do we keep seeing things like SLS and other things happen? Is it political? Is it budgetary? Is it just culture?
Yes, and yes.
Right?
I mean, the budget's small, comparatively speaking, at least compared to what it was in the 60s. However, we should be able to do more with less than we have in the past, because we did a lot of heavy lifting then, as did the Russians, as the Soviet Union at the time. So what are the other reasons? Well, institutionally, it's hardened a bit. They don't have the kind of flexibility, and you could talk to the astronauts and the flight directors and the officials from the 60s, and they'll tell you that. Chris Kraft will tell you that. It's not the flexible, fleet-of-foot, highly adaptable organization that it was. There's a big conversation about taking risk. How much risk can you take? When you look at Apollo, what they were doing right on the bleeding edge with that hardware from the 1960s, it's unbelievable that it worked. The further we get from it, the less I can believe it worked. We're almost as far from Apollo now as it was from the Wright brothers' first flight of canvas and wooden airplanes. And I still have a hard time believing that we did it.
I have a hard time comprehending the fact that the Apollo program, only had one accident.
Yeah, and it was on the ground.
Considering what happened, and what they were working with, and just how far, they were pushing the edge. They only had one accident, and like you said, it was on the ground. How did that even, how did that not happen?
I know. Well, and then have you ever gone to you've gone to Kennedy Space Center, right? Okay, well, they've got a half. You need to go.
Yeah,
they've got a half.
I do want to go. So.
Tomorrow trip.
They've got a partially finished lunar module. I think it's a test item 3 or something. You can go up to it. So you see the lunar module display up there, like, wow, what a spaceship. First true spaceship, not designed to fly in atmosphere and all that. Then you see the one on the ground, you go up and go clink with the hull, and you realize it really was only as thick as a couple of Coke cans. You think, so wait, you guys got in that for how long? And you slept on the surface of the moon, and that thing would go in any moment. So when you look at how close they're pushing to the edge, and then the computers, of course, 36K of memory, barely capable of doing what they had to do, but they did it brilliantly. So getting back to the core question, how do we get that NASA back? Well, I think we did as hard as it was, that was the easiest stuff to do in the solar system, Earth orbit, and then the moon. And now Mars is that, that's really going out there. It's demanding a lot more for a lot less money than we had at the time.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
Again, part of it, like I said, is risk, but primarily political motivation, willpower.
Yeah.
We had a perfect enemy in the Soviet Union in the 1960s. I'll show you.
Yep.
I'm going to show.
Our missile's bigger than your missile, kind of
Interesting metaphor. Yeah, no, and it was. It
We
turned
wrote our
out.
name on the moon.
Yeah. Well, and I still like that idea of, hey, let's blow up nuclear weapons on the moon to show off, look how powerful we are.
Right.
Well, it would have been
I
kind
forgot
of cool.
about that. So, it would have
nuke
been
the moon.
that would have been a little interesting.
But we had this arch enemy, and more than proving to them, hey, we're the bigger dog on the beach, because you can just send over nuclear missiles to do that. We want to show the non-aligned nations and the countries that were waffling, well, should we follow the Soviet camp or the American camp? Come with us.
Yeah.
We got better school, we got better technology, we got bigger rockets, we went to the moon, and then we decided to stop after 3 years. So there's that political motivation. Some people think we're going to get that back because of China. I don't personally, but it could happen, because China in a couple of years may walk into a session of Congress and go up to the American delegation and say, hey, here's that flag you left behind the moon, Apollo 11. It's kind of bleached out, but we thought you might want it back. It's like, oh, wait, you guys just went there and landed? So who knows? That can change everything.
Yeah, I know a lot of NASA's internal political issues. Challenges, thank you. Come from having to represent various constituent bases. Is it even possible for NASA to do the pushes that we need a big government-backed organization to do, while making the entrenched, the people who make the hardware and have been making it since the 60s, and we expect to have this money coming to us,
right,
keeping them happy?
Lobbying. Congress.
Yeah,
you left the C word out of that conversation.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, so
I don't know. Wouldn't it be delightful, as in China for the most part, where they've separated those things, and you get executive order from the Politburo, who's agreed, okay, let's do this and this and this, and we'll end up with people on Mars in 2040. Go forth and fetch, And they just get to do it because they don't have these changes of administration. Now they don't have any changes of administration, at least on the presidential end. Not that I'm for that kind of form of government, but I do like the idea of some enhanced continuity and not sending NASA off on these fruitless errands where you don't get to finish a program like we did with Constellation.
There was a
Senate launch system.
Yeah, there was a. It's one way to.
Now she brought it in.
Yeah.
Well done.
Wasn't there like an idea from a congressional representative a couple years ago that we should approve NASA budgets on like a decade scale, so that way the goals and the sort of the points that we want to get to are locked in for a long-term period, so that way it's not every administration fluctuating wildly back and forth, like flapping it in the wind until it breaks.
There was that idea, and I thought, that sounds pretty good to me, but then I was talking to a former deputy administrator of the agency who said, no, I don't think you want to give them 10-year mandates.
Why not?
Because it's just too easy to go up in the wrong direction. It should be continuous oversight and revision, but make it more continuous oversight and revision.
And shouldn't it be oversight by the right people?
Well, hence the National Space Council. So
Right.
hopefully that's the right group of people. If you've ever met or talked to Scott Pace, he's a brilliant guy, very, very settled, very logical, really, I think, doing that group a lot of good. And the people in it are pretty good. Now they have this advisory group, which brings in an even larger set of voices underneath. So I think they're doing good work. How much that will actually impact what NASA does is still something that we're kind of waiting to see, and what it will be. I mean, I think they have done very well in bringing commercial into the conversations you were saying with this idea of putting Orion on Falcon Heavy in New Glenn. It's like, what? You say you're doing what? But with the cancellation of that enhanced upper stage for SLS, you need to do something. So.
Yeah. And a lot of people like to place the entire blame of SLS and development and everything on NASA. I know a lot of people who will throw it 100% at their court that, NASA is the ones who've botched this. But is it really kind of NASA, or is there also you can throw some blame at contractors as well on the project?
Well, SLS isn't botched. It's just going slowly. It will work, I think. It's proven technology. I mean, space shuttle engines, space shuttle-derived SRBs. It'll work. It's just very slow and very expensive. When you talk to NASA, there's a mixed reaction there. Some people wanted it, some don't. Marshall was big on it because it would made sense for them. But it was Congress that said, no, you got to do this, because we've got a lot of people saying that you got to do it, so you got to do it. And I think, there is one other side to this, which I hear mentioned very little. It's not likely, but Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos could wake up tomorrow morning and go, this rocket thing isn't making me much money. I don't think I'm going to do it anymore. And then SLS is your baby if you want heavy lift. I don't see that happening. Somebody else would come in behind them, possibly the Chinese, who are now flying reusable rocket tests that, boy, do they look a lot like the Falcon 9. And you ask them, journalists asked him, that looks a lot like the Falcon 9. He said, of course it does. What do you expect? Thanks for the developments.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it does make sense to have it. I just wish that it could be a little more lean, mean, and mainstreamed, and possibly a higher percentage of cooperation with contractors would have made sense. I don't know. Yeah. And now we got to build lunar landers.
Yes,
they put out that RFP, which is great.
Yeah.
Because we were, there's a lot of us worried about, having a smaller ISS out around the moon is kind of cool, and we like the idea, but can you take that last 120 miles or whatever it is down to and go back like we did a long time ago? And so now that's been issued, and hopefully we'll see some development there, because ultimately that's what we want to do. We want to go to these places. We want to extract resources in these places, because we're human beings. We need them. And we want people to be able to eventually get there. And the great thing about the moon, as I'm sure you both know, is you got water, you got oxygen, not just in the water, but in the very rocks and soil. You got all these silicates, you got metals, you got everything you need there to build whatever you want. So why spend $6,000 or $8,000 per gallon of water to launch it off of Earth? It's expensive. It may actually be more than that. I don't remember the exact number anymore, because SpaceX has brought that down. When you've got it all sitting out there, the Chinese know that. That's what their robotic program is aimed at.
Yeah, kind of proof of concept on those things like that. So yeah. So is going to the moon sort of going to enable us to go to other places as well, or could we just outright go to those other places?
Just throw the fastball right in my face. So moon equals Mars, right? Sure. Yes, in the big picture, I believe it will. Is it the fastest way to do it? Probably not. Apollo was the fastest way to get to the moon. Should we do that for Mars and make it expeditionary in nature, a sortie? Some people think so. A lot of people say, no, don't do that. That's a dead end. An Apollo, as brilliant as it was, didn't have to be a dead end. But by the time they finished flying out the program, and the last three were canceled and all that, it kind of was. That hardware was discontinued, didn't have to be, and the shuttle came in. So, is the moon a stepping stone? Yes. Does it have to be a stepping stone? Probably not. But I think more realistically, it's the only thing we're going to be able to sell over the next 10 years to the public when you're talking about tax-supported stuff. If Elon Musk holds up his aspirational deal and says, I'm going to be on Mars by 2024, I'm still not quite sure. Maybe somebody around here knows something about this, but I'm still not quite sure, how the radiation protection in the BFR/Starship is going to work, because I just don't see it in what few schematics I've seen. No. Because you're going to be out there a long time. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. So I think that part's thrilling. But yeah, let's make the moon a way station. Let's get there. Let's get settled in. Let's really work out this in situ resource extraction and utilization process, so we know what we're doing when we get to Mars. We do have an experiment on the Mars 2020 rover called MOXIE, which is going to grab a bit of atmosphere and extract useful things out of it. So that's good. Make some oxygen. So that's a good start, but it's very small. I think we get to an industrial scale on the moon doing these things, and now you're in business. Now you get people going out there, living in lunar orbit, possibly as astronauts, living on the surface of the moon, working, really figuring it out. You know, can we actually go down, live inside lava tubes, and not end up having each other for dinner by accident?
Yeah.
Let's make sure. Probably, but let's make sure. And then Mars makes an awful lot of sense.
Yeah. And then we'll just hop on the Pan Am, Orion 3 and head on up, right?
Oh, you know, you're a heartbreaker, man. I still look at those pictures and I think, why didn't they? I mean, Pan Am isn't even with us anymore, but that was such a beautiful vision. And they even sold us little tickets. Mm-hmm. You know, you could get your ticket and your certificate in 1968 while you were waiting in the line to go see 2001: A Space Odyssey to get your Pan Am Clipper ride.
Wonder if they'll honor that at some point.
Well, there's no Pan Am.
Yep.
Well, I mean, someone else can pick it up, whoever does it, right?
Yeah, I actually got contacted by a lawyer a few years ago who claimed to own, I guess the Pan Am identity is split up into 7 or 8 different entities. And he had one of them. I thought, what could you do with that? And then I found I was sort of thinking like the Mars One people. I thought, okay, that's not a good idea. But it seemed like a neat idea at the time because Pan Am, that whole thing was really inspirational. And as you know, there's groups still trying to do that kind of thing. But I think, really the Musks and the Bezoses and the Bransons are the ones that are going to make that operate. And Branson, I mean, Virgin Galactic has been really in the news lately. So I'm excited. They're close.
And hopefully Virgin Orbit's going to be coming into the news pretty soon, too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and how can you go wrong with 747? I mean, and the lion's share of the lifting, that's perfect.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I drive past it and I see it, just sitting there, out there. And just like, man, I can't wait to see that thing dropping rockets.
Do you stop and sneak into the hangar?
I like not being asked to leave places. So
Especially with guns pointed at you?
Yeah, typically. So, yeah. So
sometimes it's worth it, though.
It can be. So, yeah, I was going to say.
Any stories?
Couple times out at Armstrong, right? So I noticed Dada's kind of nodding over there. Sort of a certain door.
Oh, do tell, yes.
A certain door that said SR-71 personnel on it that everybody stopped at to take photos, and we were told very quickly to move along. So, yeah, it wasn't the NASA people telling us that, though. So.
Well, they're very nice. I was shooting in an air show years ago. They had invited us to come shoot video, and I'm walking up towards, I think it was an F-18, and suddenly this kid, is pulling guard duty. I hear this clink, looking over, and there's an M16. It's not aimed at me or an M4, but it's kind of held like this. It's like, no, you can't look down the engine duct. Oh, which is okay, but tell me before.
Right.
Yeah.
It's in there.
And I had a similar experience, which is not space related, so I'll keep it very short, but I was in Hong Kong in 1980. Because I'm old enough to have been there in 1980 and be a functioning adult, and thought, I want to take a train to the New Territories. That sounds cool. So I took this train to the New Territories. As we were passing the next to last station, I saw this sign going by. It said, last stop for white Europeans. I went, oh. So it reached the end of the line. Everybody got off and went and lined up at this kiosk. I'm looking around. I'm only going to be here a few minutes. There's this gate open in this fence. So I walk through it, and I'm walking around with my camera shooting movies. This kid comes running up, waving and pointing and stuff. Looks like what? I look around. Well, the red flags, the yellow stars are on my side of the fence, and the blue ones with the gold stars are on the other side of the fence. I thought, I just walked into what was then Red China. Oh my God. So I ran back, got my ticket, it was almost back on the train, and this big calloused hand landed on my shoulder and said, you have committed a grave international violation, and we're going to take you in and tie your ankles together and whip you with live eels and all this kind of stuff. And he waited until I was shaking and practically wetting myself, and then he just laughed and said, have a nice trip, and put me on the train. So that was stupid, but didn't involve anything about space.
Heck of a story. So,
hey, well, you got to have a couple.
Yeah.
You're not threatened by live eels. It's not a story.
Yeah, I got to say.
Depends on what they do with them,
Yeah.
And, and I'll bet at some point, there were live eels brought into Laserium. I would bet you money, because they brought everything else into that show, coming back full circle,
boy.
because there was people doing really odd things.
Speaking of odd things,
yeah.
I have heard of Be Mean to Patrons Day.
By the way, just before we continue with this portion of the program, just in the
I
interest,
would know.
In the interest of full disclosure, myself and Sarah
Yes.
work at Griffith Observatory here in Los Angeles, one of the oldest public science institutions really in the world. Rod also worked there in the 70s and 80s. So you literally have an entire group of you have interviewees.
You have Grandpa and you have the current
yeah,
staff.
I guess that's one way to look
All
at
right,
it.
kids. We never had.
my day.
I would tell you, actually. Are you watching Laura Danley? I would tell you the truth. If we had to be mean to Patrons Day, we did not.
Really?
We had bad tie day, which, given the fashion sense of the guides, was really easy to do. And I had orange brocade ties this big.
Oh,
I mean,
good
they were
Lord.
a whole bag of them. They were
I'm
hideous.
feeling ill already.
I think probably the closest thing to what you're talking about was there were nights when people would call in. I don't think we discussed this last time about the ring around the moon phenomenon.
Oh, the 22-degree halo.
Yeah, and they'd call in about that. And after about 4 hours of that, you know, you're thinking, gosh, if I fake a stroke, will they get me out of here on a gurney? You know, so Griffith Observatory. Yeah, hold on. So we got into this thing where we'd say, oh, hold on, I'll transfer you to the research department. And then the guy in the back, if you ever saw the guide room, how it used to be set up, the guy in the back would pick it up and go, research. Oh, no, you need atmospheric phenomena. Hold on. So we go in this cycle where I think the most was 12 once. And finally, the last guy would pick up the phone. And I'm sorry, Dr. Krupp. We were young. We weren't supervised. Ring around the moon department. And I mean, you know, these poor folks have been hanging on for 10 minutes. What? Don't know a thing about it. And I thought, this is just harsh. Now, I never did that, I just want to say. But I heard that other people did. There was also a thing called show RFing. Did you ever hear of that?
Show RFing.
It's rat fornicating, but with a different word. And the idea was for the last show of any given run, you tried to stump the planetarium, the lecture, right? And some of them were easy to choke up, others were hard. So, I mean, you know, a basic idea would be, because we had slide projectors back then, people used to put, you know, here's Canis Major, and he'd put a picture of his dog, like, licking his armpit or something. And the audience looked a little confused, but they dug it. It was okay. The best one I ever saw, I think, was Stephen Fentress, who is now the director of the Strassenberg Planetarium. Apologizing in advance to you, Stephen. But he was a brilliant lecturer. He was engaging. He was funny. He told great jokes, unflappable, like ice. You know, he's right in the middle of a show, and one of the guides opened the main doors and brought a tour group in. Like, this is a planetarium theater. Now, you can see it was dark here a minute ago, and you'd see stars up there. And he walks them all the way around this ice and out. And Steve, the planetarium lecturer, he rolled with it because he could do that. He said, and here we see a live tour happening in the planetarium show. This is, of course, part of our regular presentation. And he took them through, and I thought that was extraordinary. And again, you know, the audience is kind of... But here's my rationalization. The place is free, right? So while the show, I mean, you shouldn't do that to a show, and we never would have had we been mature adults. And again, I apologize to anybody whose eyesight was offended by that. But in terms of being in the building, which is free, it's like, you know, if you occasionally have a little, it was just a way of staying sane in the laser area, because it really was tough. We had, early on, we had no security guards.
Right.
We had all this crazy stuff going on. I'm sure the management's heard these excuses before. And, yeah, it was a way of diverting ourselves. I knew this was going to come up. We did our best,
war stories, you know?
Well, it is. So. And it was difficult, and it wouldn't happen now because you guys are much better organized. Yeah. And I think management is much more savvy to all this. So it's a better
Thanks for ruining
operation.
it for us, man.
Well, but you know, it's better for the public.
Absolutely.
And the place, I mean, the renovation they did was brilliant. I couldn't believe it because we were talking 5-year plans for 20 years, right?
Right.
I've got another 5-year plan to raise this much. But Ed Krupp kept at it and kept at it and kept at it. And I think really it was him that pushed that through.
Gotcha.
Because the city was dragging their feet a little bit, as happens in large cities.
No.
And did this brilliant, wonderful renovation. I mean, there was no Leonard Nimoy Theater. There was no gallery down there. There was no restaurant. We had this horrible snack bar that was surrounded by a cloud of bees all the time because the snow cones dumped in the food trash cans, and you'd walk out there and go, can I have a hot dog, please? And then I'll run away. And it was $9 for a bad hot dog, you know? So it's really...
I will not say anything.
At least in the restaurant, you could sit there and enjoy the view. The snack bar was over by little telescopes. It was, you know, the other end of the parking lot was horrible. So it's much, much better. So it should be treated better.
We
By you.
do.
We do.
We do. There's no
Yeah.
samurai guide now.
Oh, I didn't bring that up.
Yep,
You
we did not, so.
Yeah, but that's right where we leave it. Right?
Rod said that he made films. He worked in entertainment.
Well,
works still. And
Yeah.
while he was there, he did blow off a little
A
steam.
horrible. So we did this awful Super 8 production. Now, it was after hours. We were closed.
Oh.
Because we had the
There's
keys. and
daylight
you
for some of this.
Well, and the Rangers didn't kick you out then. It's like, yeah, you know, whenever you're done, just let yourself out because we had keys at the gate. So Samurai Delicatessen and Samurai Vice President, Samurai this, Samurai that was all the rage on Saturday Night Live, with John Belushi hacking things out. So we did a little film called Samurai Guide about, you know, the samurai work at the observatory and patrons get out of line and it goes on a killing rampage and all this. And it was really probably the poorest filmmaking you can imagine. Now, just in my defense, this was in the era when you literally had Super 8 film, scissors and tape and glue.
Yes.
You know, so you're trying to, and no sound, right? So you're trying to
there's
put this
sound.
stuff together. There's sound, but it was added later. It's just bad, I think, what is it, Electric Light Orchestra or something.
Exorcist.
What I can't figure out,
Tubular bells.
well, yeah, that was added later. What I cannot figure out is, I shot that thing, I edited that thing, we showed it a few times at Griffith to friends, and it's sitting in my closet at home. I have no idea how it got onto YouTube. I still
It's on
don't know.
YouTube?
It is not available anywhere.
I found it on our server. Someone went to the
You
effort
found it
of
on your server at the
Yes,
observatory?
Yes, it's there. Someone went to the effort of digitizing it.
Well, I did have a black beard then. It was completely black. My hair was black. I was thinner. I wasn't any smarter. But, yeah, well, that's interesting. Why would it be on
Maybe Dr. Krupp wanted it
Yeah.
digitized.
the... No, I don't think so. Pretty sure that
Are you
wasn't his
kidding?
thing.
Dr. Krupp saves everything.
No, I'm just saying I doubt he was a fan.
Oh, I'm sure he hated it.
You know?
But
he's been
doesn't
very
mean-
supportive since. You know,
Yeah.
once I started writing books, he said, yeah, it's great. You ought to sell them at the observatory and all that, which I do appreciate. But I don't think that's probably on his required viewing list. For
I
new
would
guides.
very much doubt that.
Yeah.
I think we got in trouble for watching it once.
We did,
Yeah.
actually. So, yeah, we found it. We started watching it. We were all laughing.
How did you get in trouble? Oh, because you were at work?
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course,
And,
it was on the server.
Yeah, we didn't know what it was. It just said Samurai
Samurai
Guide.
Guide.
We
Who's
were
this
like,
guy?
huh?
Wait, I know that guy.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Tony was rabble-rousing, I think, and he was like, "Oh, there's
So yes,
somebody made
about
this video."
Tony. About Tony. What do you hear from Tony? Tony Cook, staff astronomer. Great guy. You talk about filling big shoes.
Yeah.
The guy he followed, Paul Rokes, was this cowboy astronomer. I mean, literally, cowboy boots, lacquered straw hat. He was a horse breaker and a rodeo guy and all that, who became the staff astronomer at Griffith.
Sure,
And he
like you
was-
do.
What?
Like you do.
Like it happened.
Yeah.
And he was this, besides just being an incredible and a nice human being, he was one of the few people there were a handful, who would really come talk to the guides and hang out and chill. And if we were in our 20s, you know, oh my God, I've got a zit, and I can't find girls or whatever, or guys, depending. He would come down and talk and put his arm around your shoulder. He was like other dad, you know, he was your observatory dad, great guy. So when he retired, that job came open. I think Tony was the next. I'm not sure there was anybody in between. So those were big shoes to fill. And he's no cowboy, but he has gone in there and done a great job, especially of kind of maintaining this honesty about the historical truth of the place. I mean, I know that he was instrumental in keeping the little loungers, the Apollo astronauts, We used to sit in when
Yeah,
they were
we
learning
still have that.
navigation.
That's- and we actually still have the original Zeiss, and they're right
Yeah.
next to each other.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Second Zeiss, I think.
Oh, excuse me. Yes.
yeah, it
second.
was. It
Yeah.
was the,
Pardon me.
the Mark
So-
IV. Yeah.
so-
What
yeah.
is it now? Mark 8?
Mark 9.
Boy, they don't,
it
they
9?
don't revise those very quickly, do they?
Yeah, no, not really.
Yeah, it's been 40 years. Let's make another projector design. But Tony really is like, if you know Mike Okuda from Star Trek, he's the keeper of the canon for Star Trek. He's an art director at the lot. And when I was working on Trek, if I needed to know what color Begruvian disruptor beam had to be, it's like, Mike, what color is a Begruvian disruptor? Oh, puce, okay. He was the guy, because he was the honest heart and soul of the history of Star Trek, and that's kind of Tony at the observatory. You know, he is the guy who. So what did he say?
Well, he told me to ask. He is how I found out about Be Mean to Patrons Day, and he also told me a story about one day during Laserium where there was a bit of a performance where an ambulance was called.
Yeah.
I would imagine that'd be a regular thing for
No,
Laserium.
this was guides performing for the patrons.
I don't know that.
Oh,
I
my
know
goodness.
when One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Neck,
Yes.
Jack Nicholson showed up.
Yeah,
Okay, I don't think we had an ambulance for that.
really? Okay. It
but-
might have gotten inflated a bit.
Yeah,
All right.
well, these things do, but I was there, so I do remember that. So we had lines that used to stretch from the building out to the end of the parking lot past the Astronomers Monument because these were sellout shows. And that was in a time where you couldn't come a minute late. Once the doors are closed, you're done. You're not getting in there
Still-
because it's a dark theater.
Still
Still
is
that way.
And
Yeah.
try to
Time for
explain that
planetarium
to
shows.
some guy with his girlfriend going, what do you mean I can't get in? So that got very testy, which is part of what put us in a bad mood. So apparently, and I wasn't actually part of this, I observed it, but I didn't know what was going on because I was guide management at that time and they didn't want me to know. So there, I'm standing on the front lawn and the line is crackling and people are like, did you? So apparently what had happened, Ken Kramer and a few others, Brett Paul, had gone to the line and started this whispering. They took their ties off and went in line and said, Jack Nicholson's coming tonight. Really? Yeah. Oh, did you hear that? What? And you could see it rippling down the line, kind of like a little seismic wave, you know. And the whole line was muttered, Jack Nicholson. So we decided, okay, we got to bring him up in a car and have him come out. So Dennis Hernandez, I think it was, who was another guide, had a trench coat and a hat. I mean, this dopey stuff. And he pulls up
Chinatown.
it pulls up in a Ford Fairmont, which is not the car you'd expect Jack to be driving, you know. But it had a chauffeur with a hat, even though it was like one of the cheapest possible cars you could get then. I mean, I had a Ford Granada, which was a slight step up, but it wouldn't have worked either. So the Fairmont pulls out, somebody comes around, opens the door, Dennis gets out, he walks up into the theater with his hat pulled down over his face. Everything. These people are just going bonkers. And I don't remember if there's a resolution to it beyond that. I don't remember an ambulance, though.
Oh, man.
Why would there be an ambulance?
I don't know.
Jack Nicholson's here. Call 911!
No, that there was a scuffle, and then Jack's date needed medical attention, and
Tony Cook? Yeah, where's my lifeline?
Right?
Tony? I don't remember this part. It's possible. A lot of odd things did happen. There were 2 toga parties
Oh, no.
because we had. Isn't this supposed to be a show about space flight and science?
Yeah.
Okay, but I'll just
Yes.
finish very quickly. So the roof is very special. It's got this incredible view of LA. It's got the telescope there. We used to be able to use the telescope for brief periods of time after closing hours, which was fantastic. And that was actually legitimate scientific inquiry, right? But there were a couple of times, I think they were in the summer, and this was after National Lampoon's Animal House. So somebody, and again, this wasn't my particular thing, decided, let's have a toga party. So after the observatory closed and the crowds were ushered down the hill and the gates were locked and only the wackos and the coyotes were left in the brush around the observatory, it was just us up on the roof, and we had a big photographic print washer filled with champagne. It was a champagne fountain and everybody wearing togas and a couple of torches and all this stuff that I'm sure you can't do today. And the Rangers were kind of, we said, come on up, put on a toga. So we're like, okay. So it was a lot of fun. And, you know, again, you're in your 20s, you think that kind of thing's incredibly amusing and you'll be able to tell stories about it for years and years and years.
yeah.
Yeah.
And here we are,
you
still
can.
talking about it.
And you know, with stories, you are a writer.
Yep.
So you're not just like a super expert on spaceflight, and also
Right.
exceptionally good at talking about a very interesting time at Griffith Observatory.
Yeah.
You also write, like you just talked about space journalism and your involvement in it.
Yeah.
So
what?
So like, so what does that entail? You know, like
Writing about space?
Yeah, because like you're helping deliver. That maybe helping work against that PR problem.
Oh,
that
you
we were
make it
talking
sound so noble. Thank you.
So-
I wrote fiction as a kid, and after reading my own stuff and sitting around with some friends, I realized that the kindest thing I could do for the world is never try to write fiction again. Because I like my readers and my fans. It's like I will not make them go through that. But at the same time, so I went to UCLA as an astronomy major originally. And I lasted about a year and a half until I got to differential calculus, which most people would have taken before they went to UCLA, but I was a little bit behind the power curve. And I went, oh, astronomy is math. Oh, this is really bad. So that's when I changed over to film school and journalism and realized that the really fun part was not being a sub-average scientist or engineer, which would have been me. You know, I'd be the guy with the big pencil going, trying to figure the equations, calculator. The fun part was talking to people about it and communicating these stories. So that's what got me into TV in the first place, is doing documentaries about it. But then you're trying to tell the whole Apollo project in 44 minutes. And it's like, what do you mean? And you're up through Apollo 13 at minute 39. And then for the next 5 minutes, you got to wrap up the other 4. And it happens every time. I thought this is like writing for TV Guide, or now you'd say Twitter, right? That was TV Guide. You guys don't remember TV Guide, huh?
Oh, I remember TV Guide. Little things that say, you know, here's what it is and what channel it'll be on.
Yeah, little tiny print.
Yeah.
It's no way to tell stories. So then when I started getting book offers, I thought, wait a minute, you're going to actually pay me something to act like a pig in mud and get down and roll around this story about space for a couple of months or a year, and then other people are going to read it and maybe like it? Well, yeah, that's how book authoring works. By golly, you know, I was kind of like a country hick getting his first car, and have never looked back. It is just the most fun, except for being on this show, that you can have in the space trade. No, really. I mean, I really like coming down here. This is every time I drive down here, it's like, oh, this is so cool.
Yes.
But yeah, writing that stuff is great, and I just wish that I could get sometimes a little more access to the big players. You know,
Right.
you got to really hustle if you're going to get in with SpaceX, get in with Blue Origin, and get in with some of the others, because you know they want to control the outflow of PR. So if you're writing those stories, you have to get clever and look around the curtain sometimes. It's the wizard. Look, ignore that man. But yeah, I mean, you know, we most of our content for Ad Astra is written externally. Anybody around here that might have some skill in that area?
If only there
Where do
were-
we submit?
If only there were some people that were writers.
Yes.
So yeah.
So
Hey.
the editorial email address is in there, and that funny-looking guy with the
I think we know this guy.
Yeah, that guy
cheesy
looks
short
familiar.
sleeve shirt.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure
yeah.
does. So it's a good.
So,
That's
yeah.
a nice shirt.
So feel thank you.
Yeah.
I've had it for way too long. So feel free to pitch, and we do pay.
Yeah, excellent.
That is
How about
amazing.
that?
Yeah.
We pay,
Whoa.
and it's in print. And I gotta
know.
say, you know, so many. I mean, there's a lot of good magazines out there about space. You know, there's the Planetary Report from Planetary Society, and there's Mercury from the Astronomy Society Pacific, and a bunch of others. But they're not in print, a lot of them anymore, because it is so expensive to do that. So one of the things I love about the NSS, there are many, is that they're willing to commit to keeping this in print, and we operate on a very tight budget with a staff of 2.5. Which is not a lot when you're doing it quarterly,
Yeah.
but I mean, being able to put it on paper is really special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if in 20 years paper magazines will still exist, but I'm glad they do now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to see that that there's something still continuing, you know, with space journalism, especially stuff independent from major networks and other news groups, because they kind of tend to not necessarily get it wrong, but they skim over details that are actually pretty important, you know, and a lot of the cool stuff too they'll forget about including that.
Well, but you bring
So
up,
pre-digested.
It kind of is. You
Yeah.
bring up an interesting point, though. You've got to appeal to a certain audience, right? If you're going to sell these things.
Yeah.
Now, we have a built-in audience because this goes to membership.
Yeah.
So, 10,000 plus issues plus the extended members, which puts it up to, I think, 30, which isn't bad. For the next issue, which is the Apollo special issue, which I think I mentioned, which is going to be longer, heavier cover stock, but I think it's going to be a third longer in terms of pages. That is going to be available to the public, so we're going to send it out digitally, possibly in print, but digitally for sure. We're going on to new platforms. And that's exciting because the whole reason I joined the NSS in the first place was I saw a copy of this magazine on the newsstand and paid, I don't know, the then outrageous price of $2.99 or something. And I was reading this and I said, these guys are cool. I want to join this organization. So I'm really hoping at least once a year to get a special issue out to the world so they can see what we're doing and come join. The rest of the year it'll probably be a member benefit for a while, but ultimately I think it makes sense to open it up to the public because there just aren't that many out there. And this isn't immediate news like space.com where they get something new every day and it's up there in 8 minutes because their writers work really fast. This is a quarterly that really looks at longer term trends. I don't think it's in that issue. I think it's in the previous one we did a big write-up on the SLS, which a wonderful writer named John Cross wrote, and it was a tough story. Because you're talking about where it's headed and what's happening with the upper stage and what that means and what's the net result of all this going to be, what's it going to get us, what are the challenges, and he did a really good story. So I think that's something that should be seen beyond the immediate membership. But if you join, get this in your mailbox every quarter. Well worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if if someone's really interested in kind of like getting into journalism, especially like space journalism, like what are some of the things that they should really consider?
Running away? No. You mean in terms of getting the work?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, what are some of the things that you have to think about? Like, you got to grab contacts within the industry, obviously, and you might have to go to things and other stuff. Like, what's some of the stuff that someone should be prepared to do in order to make
Stock in a lot of top ramen because you're probably going to need it. It's interesting, we were talking about this before we started. When I started writing books in 2003 or 4-ish, a first-time author could get a commission of $35,000. Sure, we trust you. Here's a bunch of money. Go write a book. Now, if you get anything, this is nonfiction. If you get anything for your first-time commission, it's probably going to be $4,000 or $5,000, or you're going to be self-publishing. Self-publishing, the average self-published book sells 12 copies per year. 12. 1, 2, and that's to relatives and friends. So it's very challenging. Journalism's a little different, but what's so interesting there is, in a way, there's more opportunity than ever before because there's so many venues. But they're not curated very well for the most part. So if you're working for, don't want to impugn anybody in particular, but let's say Yahoo News. You've seen some of the stories in Yahoo News. Some are pretty good. They're usually picked up from another source. Some are not very good. They're often internally generated. I've seen stuff that I've written that was machine translated into Hindi and then machine translated back into English. It's like, I feel like my Labrador looking at calculus going, what? That doesn't make any sense. So, cost is the big thing, and they want stuff cheap. If you guys have explored this, you know that there are people that will proudly offer you $15 a story for what could be 2 or 3 days of work. And you think, well, do people really live on this, even in, Bratislava? Can you live with that kind of money? So I think there's 2 categories of writers that are really killing it right now. Very young people that don't have a lot of expenses and are fresh out of school, or maybe they haven't taken journalism school at all and don't need to, but who are just jamming into this because they want to and money's not critical. And then guys my age who are looking at retirement and maybe Social Security if there's anything left when we get there, who are saying, hey, money's no longer a big factor because I'm retired. But that big chunk in the middle, which is where most of the people should be doing it, who are partway through their careers, they're polished, they're developed, they're smart, they've got experience, they know how to run down sources, they know what's okay to do, what's not okay to do, how to really create compelling, engaging, breaking stories. Those are the ones we need, and that's the hard part because it's very difficult for them to make a living anymore. So I would say if you're looking for advice for people, start early, find what you're going to focus on, and then really, just bang on that as much as possible. If it's the technology side, great. If it's the policy side, great. There's not enough people writing about policy. It's a little bit of a of a more challenging area in some ways. If you're going to do history, well, don't do it until I'm done, okay? Because I don't need the competition. But if you're going to do history, you know, do that and really just focus on that and specialize, and then you'll soon be rich, famous. Anyway, I was going to say rich and famous, but you'll be famous.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So if people want to know more about you and also about your books as well, how can they do that?
Oh, this means we're wrapping up. I don't want to wrap up. I got so many more observatory stories to tell.
That's for After Dark.
Yeah, okay. I have a website called pilebooks.com. It's pylebooks.com, not like it sounds, because that's not how you spell my name. And this magazine is a good way to keep track. And then I do radio here in LA on KFI, which is kind of our blowtorch 50,000 watt talk station. Every couple of weeks I do WGN in Chicago and the overnight show. That's interesting because you get all the interesting calls. We never went to the moon. Okay. And then I have a podcast on iHeart called Cool Space News by Rod Pyle, complete with the Lost in Space theme music.
Nice.
I know how to groove, man.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That sounds great. So, Rod, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. And you've got so much stuff to share with everybody. We really encourage everyone to go and read and check it all out.
Yeah, they're going to get free books.
Yes.
What?
Reading's so good.
Thank you for keeping the torch.
My pleasure. Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah, and to wrap up our show, we are going to thank all of our patrons of tomorrow. These folks help us out financially. You know, they donate, they help give money to us that allows us to bring these things to you. And we wouldn't be able to do any of this, you know, share Rod's story, all the other fun things with that, actually talk about what you can do to help spread the good word about spaceflight and other things without your support. So you are all critical to helping make this show happen, and we're so thrilled that you all feel like being a part of this show. So thank you guys so much for watching tomorrow, episode 12.09, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
I probably should have asked that before.
I
think it's 7
actually
years,
don't know
right?
how long the statute of limitations is.
I think there is no statute of limitations on murder, but
believe
below
that-
that, I think it's...
I believe that for whatever the crime
Roundabout.
is, the limitations are different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
so-
drinking in the park that is dry.
Yeah.
I don't actually know. what that
I
would
think
be.
you have to be witness doing it.
Okay, I don't think there was anything going on up there that would actually apply to that. But I just,
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you know, it's a good thing to double check.
But there are probably people that are still upset about it, regardless. Those guys transferred me 12 times before they told me there was no ring around the moon. We did eventually explain it, actually.
Yeah.
But after 40 calls or 70
Yeah.
calls or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, there was kind of a roundabout, weird kind of observatory story. I was working at a commercial company in Studio City called Film Fair. And we had 5 companies making commercials under one banner, and it was just a madhouse. And I was in charge of production. It was a horrible job. So we used to blow off steam at the end of the day. So at the end of the shoot, we had these 2 large tanks filled with helium. And I mean, what geek doesn't love helium? So after enough of, hey, I'm Alvin the Chipmunk and all that kind of stuff, we thought, what can we really do with this? So I found a bunch of garbage bags in the back and some duct tape. And we built this enormous black trash bag balloon, dirigible, and I got some foam core and cut this big disc and put colored blinking lights on it and all this stuff. And we sent it cruising down Ventura Boulevard at about 11 at night, or 9 at night, I guess it was early enough for that. And I thought, that's really cool. You know, that could come down and crash and hurt somebody on the freeway or something. Oh, God, I wonder where it's going. So I called Griffith. Said, hey, did you guys get any reports of UFO? They said, yeah, it's over Studio City. I thought, oh, it's kind of a nice little bit of closure there, you know? So not just experiencing the UFO calls, but actually being the cause of them was kind of neat. And I don't think we were breaking any media laws, although it was low altitude. That might not have been a thing. But
Yeah.
So what are some of your stories? I mean, you guys are there. You're still working between the cracks. The look I gets on his face like, wait, I still work there. Don't ask this question.
Yeah, I still do work there.
Yeah,
So
still work there.
So really nothing, right?
It's also not. It's definitely not the same environment.
Yeah.
we
Well,
don't-
that's a good thing.
Yeah, we don't have that leeway to
What
Yeah.
you're saying is it's professional.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a word you
That's-
can use to describe it.
Those are sounds within our English language that might vaguely apply.
Whereas Grachtelfort wouldn't be, right?
Or
You know, when you're looking at the outcome, which is a good experience for the public in the park, you're
Yes.
doing the right thing.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's been some interesting things that have happened while I was up there. You
Yeah.
know, like a couple of years ago, a rocket stage from China re-entered.
Yeah.
And I was on the lawn, and we actually watched it, you know, breaking apart.
Oh, I thought that
to
was
the
just
north.
Northern California. I didn't realize you could see it from here.
It was very low on the horizon, but you could
Wow.
it was you could definitely definitively tell
Yeah.
what it was, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, it's a meteor!" And I was like, "No, meteors move a lot faster than that. You know, it's just taking a couple of minutes to get across the sky. That's space junk re-entering." So, and then we, of course, got a lot of calls for that, so that was really fun.
Yeah.
I think it's always funny when like things happen and people
Yeah.
just call up there. Like last year, there was some like parachute group that went into the Rose Bowl for something, and they had pyrotechnics attached to themselves that were like firing off flares
things happening
as they were going down, and people were just, our phones got lit up about it. They were like, "I saw up in Pasadena there was these lights heading towards the ground," and it's just like,
And I could tell it was 40 feet across, and it definitely had people in it. I got a call one night
Yeah.
from a guy who
idea.
said, "Yeah, I was down on Hollywood Boulevard, and I found a frog." I'm like, and? So, well, you know, I figured you guys, you're a science place, you'd know what to do. You step on it? I don't know. What do you want me to say? They make a really cool popping sound. No, I didn't say that. I said, call animal welfare. Here's the number. We had this list of numbers because we got all these goofy calls.
We now have a computer sitting there. It's the slowest
even better.
computer in the history of slow
Yeah.
computers.
yeah.
And
Is it like an XS?
I think New
SX4
Horizons
process or something?
has a higher bit rate than it does.
You know when
So-
that chip was baselined for New Horizons, by the way? I was just looking this up the other day. 1990 was the original version of that
if
chip.
it's radiation hardened,
It'll take time, right? Still $500,000.
there you go. So
Yeah.
Now, when I was there, we didn't have a computer. Well, nobody had computers actually, so except for NASA and DARPA and stuff. So when people would call up and say, "What time is sunset tonight?"
yeah.
You know, right? No, it was accurate because we'd say, "Hold on," we'd look over. We had a Security Pacific bank calendar that had sunrise and sunrise times. Now, next to that, of course, we had a bookshelf with ephemerides and all that kind of stuff. And if you wanted to spend 10 minutes, you'd get out your slide rule and look it up and go. But now we just had a Security Pacific calendar, and it was accurate.
All right.
Thank you for that defunct bank. But yeah, I think people thought we were a little more cutting edge than that. What always kind of was remarkable to me is that people thought we were all scientists.
Oh yeah. Still
If I
do.
was a scientist, I wouldn't be working up there for, I think it was $1.50 an hour when I started, and then it was $3.50 when I became a Rec 3. Woohoo! I could rent my own apartment. Yeah, it wasn't very good money.
No.
But
We still can't rent our own apartments.
yeah, well, you know,
well, yeah, because it's kept, especially in this city. And
Yeah.
can you still only work a maximum of 20 hours a week?
yep.
So you can either burn them all up in 6 months or,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Or
Yeah.
float and have 9 jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing we did.
Yeah.
Everyone in the chat room seems to want us to keep talking about phone calls we've taken at the observatory. So I'll start with one of my favorite ones I ever
man.
got. Was I had somebody call. This was like maybe a couple months into me starting to work up at Griffith, and somebody called and they said, "Hey, I've been noticing of late that to the north of me, because I'm in Long Beach, that I'll see these white lights, and they're really high off in the east, and they're traveling to the west, and they're starting to go down, and they finally disappear when they go into the ocean." And I said, "Well, how, like, are the lights at like a regular distance from each other?" Like, "Yeah, they are." I said, "Are they sometimes red and green?" He said, "Yeah, have you seen them?" I said, "Yeah, that's the approach path for LAX."
Oh, no.
And he goes,
those are
"No,
Nazis."
It couldn't possibly be that. So,
Because I can tell.
Because it happens all day. I see it all day.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, there's planes landing all day at LAX. So.
You ruined the cool
I
factor
don't
of
know
that
if you
big
know
time.
this or
Yeah.
not. So I don't, like, you can go take a ride in one of those if you want. You know, it's not. You can actually pay money to do it. So
The big metal tubes, you get them and they go through the sky. I have a
great.
non-call story. We used to have a guy named Leonard, who was this little short guy with kind of scruffy blonde hair, who was fascinated with female blonde guides. He was a little fixated.
Okay.
And Leonard had one arm remaining. I don't know what happened to the other one.
All right. This is getting very interesting very
This
quick.
is why I'm telling it after the show. And he used to come up every couple of days. And he always wore Hawaiian shirts.
Hot.
Somewhat soiled.
Nice.
Yeah. And slacks that were somewhat soiled. And he kind of wander up. So is Annie working today? So he was kind of quick and weird and shifty. But the thing that really made him interesting was he'd always bring the young ladies drawings that he did. Don't worry. That's not creepy. It's just weird. So his theme, artists have themes, right? I'm going through my blue period and my pointillism period or something. He was going through his lifelong sunflower period. So he would draw pretty well all the female guides that had blonde hair as sunflowers individually. Started to get the creep factors going on. We're like, ew! And they were nice drawings. It's just there's this guy who's spending his life with his arm, drawing, holding it with his foot and drawing the. So they kept the guys around when he came up to say hi. We'd kind of stand there and, but. Yeah. But he was talented, but a little out there. I'm sure Leonard's no longer with
That seems to be how it goes a lot of times.
Yeah, we still, it was before my time, but we still have pictures up. If you see this person, report to Rangers immediately.
Yeah, we have a multitude of people.
Am I one of them?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, but this guy, he decided that the observatory was his home. He was found creeping through various parts of the observatory. Occasionally after hours, he would find his way into places. The rumor is that he was living behind the big picture. I've heard that that's not actually true.
Big picture?
Down in the
Depths of space.
Yes, the basement.
Big astronomical photo.
The world's largest astronomical image.
Very well done.
Yes, thank you.
Is there a behind?
There's a behind.
Yeah, you can go behind the universe there. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like the backside of water at Disneyland.
We're on
A lot of
Jungle Boat,
concrete.
right?
The backside of water.
That is the eighth wonder of the world. So
Wow, cool.
Yeah,
Well, it wasn't me, okay?
No, his
Fair
name was
enough.
Alex.
Clear.
So
Yes,
Yeah.
unless
That's what he said.
yeah, if you draw a little, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you leave the bulk, you go behind the big picture.
bulk.
That's right. For science. So
Why not?
but he actually started giving out our address as his address. He was getting his
Wow.
mail.
Wow.
We were his home.
That takes some nerve. So we had an era where the Hare Krishnas and was it Scientology? There were people that were coming and setting up in front of the building and selling lemonade and hot chocolate and raising money and dancing and all that kind of stuff because they knew the Lasarium line was there and they had all these people standing out there in the freezing cold in the winter. It's like they'll want hot chocolate. And we couldn't figure out what to do because the city wasn't moving fast on it. So we had a guy on staff who was a public health inspector in his day job. And he's fearless. He would mess with anybody. So he went out and got a thermometer and went, this stuff's suboptimal temperature, take it away. So we would gather it all and take it away. Hey, you can't do that. And he'd show them the badge and they'd back off. And it was a legitimate seizure. It's just not what you expect.
Right.
Yes.
And they finally had a little painted square where they got like a free speech zone where they could sit and do other stuff and
we
all
have
that.
free speech thing.
But it was just creepy because they were selling this lemonade that they kind of, they pour it in there and mix it with their finger.
Oh.
It was disgusting.
gross.
Yeah, I was glad to get rid of them.
Yeah.
I think maybe one of the most interesting things I've ever seen happen up at the observatory has actually happened multiple times. Because there's a person who'll come up in like an Egyptian headdress.
Ooh.
So
I was going to do the other costume. Okay.
Okay, so there's someone that will come up in an Egyptian headdress during like eclipses and things, and they're a pretty cool person. Like they talk to people. They're just they're just there, but they have like a horn and.
Right,
Yep,
the ram's
when the
horn.
eclipse reaches its maximum point, they will blow into the horn. And during one of the eclipses that we had, I don't know if it was last year, January of 2018, he also did that when sunrise happened as well. And I've actually seen this person up there before multiple times at sunrise doing this at the observatory. So it's just, I mean, it's not like bizarre or anything to me because it may be important to this person, to do that. But that's just, you know, of all the things
It's
that
a
It's
happen.
kind of a sort of
Yeah.
a what the heck moment. I mean, Dr. Krupp used to do some very cool stuff during eclipses and
Still
so
does.
forth.
Yes.
But it was more
Dressing
like
up
the
as the
wizard's
wizard.
robe and the hat
Hey.
and all
He
that.
still wears it.
And that
Always
was
to scare
oh,
the
that's
dragon.
fun.
Dragon be gone.
Yeah,
So,
you know, but yeah, you get the other people. It's like, wait, you're a regular citizen. You need to stay away from me. And there's something about, you know, the building's up on the hill. It's lit at night. It's that beautiful kind of crescent shaped, almost looks like it's smiling at you. And it's this magic attraction to people for miles
Yeah.
who just assume that you must know all about UFOs. It's like, yeah, but it's not
Yeah,
what you want to
right.
hear.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
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 Oh man, and we had a celebration for Krupp a couple years back. When his Camaro went over the 500,000-mile mark.
It's only reached 500,000 miles?
Yes, he just drives it up the hill and back.
I think it was like
for-
10 million by now.
No, nope.
Just
once it
for
passed
people
the-
listening,
Yes.
1968, I believe.
I think yes.
Six-cylinder Camaro, original engine, original faded blue paint,
Yep.
3-speed,
On the
Three
column.
stick shift on the column,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been driving it since it was new.
Yep. And
Yep.
when he passed the to the moon and back mark, he drove to the observatory in a spacesuit.
Class act, this man.
Walked the length of the lawn, gave a speech in the spacesuit.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he can pull it off.
He
He's
absolutely
got
can.
that style.
Now that the mutton chops are gone.
Good.
Now people take him more seriously.
Yeah.
I
It took
mean,
a long
mutton
time.
chops aren't a bad thing.
They're not. It was just, I hear
It's a great
it was
photo of
difficult.
him with a llama.
Right, and you
So-
can't tell which one is which.
Yeah.
Oh, I think he
Sorry,
had mutton
Dr.
chops kind of while they were in, while they're out, while they're in again. Yeah, I could never sport mutton chops. I don't have the style.
The way I understand it, Photo, our nonprofit funding branch, Friends of the Observatory, they actually encouraged him to get rid of the mutton chops because they couldn't get money. That donors wouldn't take him seriously. They were quite large.
Did they not notice the PhD after his name? I mean, that kind of, you know, I guess
Yeah.
there's so much you can do.
But, oh man, I think my favorite kooky story was we've got a guy that occasionally I think he's no longer allowed up, but he would dress as Cookie Monster.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I know exactly what you're talking
Yep,
about.
he was.
Okay, wait, is this going to be like an alt furry moment here? Because I don't want to go there. Okay.
No, sadly, sadly, it's not that. No, he would just harass people, and
Oh, no.
he had a bucket and was encouraging, and he had he was telling people that they had to pay him to enter the observatory.
Oh!
Ballsy, man! And so,
This will try the cookie look good, hmm?
right?
Yeah,
I guess that was kind of Yoda, wasn't it?
He was
Anyway.
all ratty and smelly, and
That's the thing. It's like the guys down at the Gromans Theater.
Yeah,
where they haven't
it's
washed
exactly.
the costume since it was new 19 years ago. And it's got insects crawling in it and stuff. And
Right.
you're like, can you get away from me, Spider-Man? No, my webs are like steel, you know.
Yeah.
Ew.
Real webs, though. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
but we
It's
we
not a
actually had
web,
really,
that's mucus. Get away from me.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
It's
It's after hours we can do that,
Yes.
right? Oh, she's looking at me like, yeah, maybe not. Maybe that's a bit.
Yeah, but actually one of our, so speaking of the more professionalism, we actually have people we call APSAs, park services people. And
So they're kind of like ranger assistants or something?
sort of, they care for the operations of the building. They're the ones who tell
Yeah.
people when
They
they
do the
can and can't
tickets,
enter the
they
planetarium.
do the-
They're
yeah.
the reasons we don't have to go samurai on them.
Cool.
Right? So one of our guys, Greg, he actually got really clever. He researched this Cookie Monster guy. He had been other places and kicked out because he has a tendency to kick over signs. So he put a sign that says, the observatory
Don't
is
kick over
free.
the sign."
You do
Oh.
not need to pay to enter the observatory. And he put it right next to the guy, and he had a ranger standing right there. And when Cookie Monster were like, he kicked our sign over, rangers escorted him out of the park. It was so clever. It
But
was
they didn't arrest him? Do they have arrest authority now?
some rangers do. I don't want to give too much of the
Yeah.
dynamic of the park away, but
Well,
yeah,
because
some
back
rangers
in the
can.
day, they were promoted gardeners.
Yes, we do have
Yeah.
some of those, but we've got actual
Yeah,
rangers.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it was hard for those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of the guides went to work for the Rangers because
Yep.
they kind of grooved on that whole paramilitary thing. It's like, I'm a gardener with an attitude, you know? I got a squirt gun. But, I mean, during the week, I think there was just one guy in a little Datsun mini truck for Griffith Park.
Oh,
it's the
geez.
largest wild urban park in the country, and there's one guy driving around, and you see somebody doing like some sort of shamanistic ritual, and they're carving up poodles or something. Like, stop! I'll throw my handcuffs at you, and I've got pepper spray. I mean, that was no way to treat those guys, but that was the city. And by the way, a little bit of absolutely useless trivia. When I was there, the city car that was always parked down the parking lot was an AMC Gremlin.
Nice.
And when I think
Those
fun,
things are quick.
I think AMC Gremlin. No, it wasn't a Gremlin X. It was the 6-cylinder.
Oh, okay, never mind.
They got, they were hideous. It was my only experience with an American Motors product.
Yeah.
But-
Because I know people always make fun of AMC Gremlins, but when they entered them into like road races, they just killed it.
That's because they had big stonking V8s in them. This had a little 140 horsepower.
Yeah.
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 It was kind of like the other 6-cylinder Camaro with the stick shift on the column. But the Camaro is at least cool. I mean, he's made it cool by owning it for
A long time.
50 years.
Yeah, basically.
50 years.
51. Right? That
Wow.
car, if it's a 68, then it predates
That car is
Apollo 11.
almost as old as me. Somebody actually was kind enough the other day to say, and I admit it was a very young person, because, on either extreme, you can't really tell somebody's age, but she said, so you're 45, right?
Like, yeah.
Oh, God bless you. You betcha. Just,
Right.
a little too much sun. It's okay. But coming from the part of the country where people will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars under the knife to try and look good.
Yeah.
And if you've ever spent a lot of time down in Malibu, in that
Not
area.
can help it.
Well, and you see people that did that like 30 years ago. And you see what happens over time as gravity and time has its
Right.
way with you. You think, wow, really?
Right? Skin only has so much elasticity.
It does.
When you start removing skin, you start messing with its ability to reshape, as you say, speak,
yes.
or smile, or exist, or sleep on your pillow.
Well, and collagen only stays intact for so long.
That's true.
And
And
then
if they're going
goes
to
other
remove skin, I
places.
want them to take some of the putty with it, too.
Yeah, right? Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
you take the skin away, get rid of all this extra bulk, but that's dangerous and expensive. Wow, we kind of gotten off topic
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And it's your fault for telling all those observatory stories.
Took a very dark turn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they did want to know other calls that we get.
I thought he was just losing interest here. I didn't realize Texas
No,
was
I
that
was just
chat room.
trying to get chat back.
Oh, no, we lost it?
Yeah, so
check that
I'm just
back.
working with it. So,
45 just as I know you have a.
Oh, my.
at 1, so.
12:45.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
yeah. I can go ahead and wrap it at this
Yeah,
point.
but-
So,
Wow.
Dad, stop.
How did it become 12:45? Fun gravity well.
All right,
The
well-
time dilation of just
Hey, do you guys still have a gravity well?
it's in storage. So we've got so much cool shit that we don't have on the floor.
She said
because
a bad word.
it's after dark. I'm okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we've got trailers of stuff like a Hubble model and this other and the gravity well that are just in a city lockup that we don't have on the floor because we don't know where to put it. We don't have the space. Really? We've got to.
Every year, all of the stuff in storage should get just a little bit closer to the gravity well.
Yeah.
I like that. And certain personnel, too.
Yeah, right?
Woo! Have you ever been to the Ranger Museum?
There's a what now?
There is somewhere,
No.
was at least, may still be a Ranger Museum. And they had a model, which I heard went there after it left Griffith. It was good because good that it left because it was kind of cheesy. But it was this probably 10 by 10 or 15 by 15 foot, beautifully done landscaped model of the park. Looked like a railroad mock-up.
nice.
Yeah.
And you had brass buttons inside black formica because that's how they did things in those days. And you push the button because when you were a kid at Griffith, all you did was go push buttons to see what they would do. And strata slices would rise up out of the park,
What?
out of the mountains. And
That's
back
cool.
down. We didn't care what it was. It's got lava below it. So what? Look at it goes up and down. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Didn't take much to impress people when I was a kid. And then the other buttons would you push one and this white light about this big would go on where the observatory was. And another one go on where the old zoo was. Another one go up where the merry-go-round was. All you had to do was drive 5 minutes there, right there, but it was so cool to see it on this thing. So I wondered if that was still at the Ranger Museum. and you still have the Hubble or the not Hubble, the Palomar mirror plug, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you ever notice the swath of removed aluminum on it?
Yes.
Did you ever hear that story?
No.
No.
We had a janitor named Mel. Mel was a really good guy, very friendly. I think he only had 2-word vocabulary. He'd say, "Hey, Mel, how's it going?" "All right, all right." "Hey, Mel, what time is it?" "All right, all right." "Hey, Mel, what are you doing to that kitten?" "All right, all right."
Oh, no.
So Mel was a very conscientious guy, and he decided one night, because the mirror plug was rusty, it needed to be cleaned.
Oh, no.
And that's a very thin layer of aluminum on front of a big plug of glass from the Palomar original 200-inch mirror. And so he got out his rag and was scrubbing away before somebody said, "No," and tried to stop him. And, that was why it was gone.
Gotcha.
So it's the best of intentions, but
Yeah.
the worst of results.
Ouch.
Yep, big ouch.
All right. I think that's the
All right, now that we're
All right.
depressed,
Thank you.
that's it. So,
After dark.
see y'all in a bit.
Well, it is dark, right? So I have a question.
Oh.
Wait. We're not clear.
Okay.
Yep.
Make it go clear.